Okay, so another one of these little talking head videos. Welcome to the video. I just kind of want to talk about a topic that's been on my mind for a little bit, and that's more so the debate between, or I guess the kind of schism that Skylanders Superchargers causes within the community. There's not going to be a huge script. I got some talking points I want to bring up about why I think Skylander Superchargers is simultaneously a very good and underrated game, and then also talk about its shortcomings as well. But since I'm making the argument, I think I'm going to go for the positive side first. Skylander Superchargers was new. It was innovative. I think it definitely was a situation, whereas, the title's going to say, I don't think it necessarily jumped the shark. I just don't know if we were ready for the change in the update. I think it released a lot of the best looking Skylanders. It does suck that we did lose core Skylanders, don't get me wrong, but the new Skylanders that were brought in for Skylander Superchargers was absolutely elite. My one knock on it is instead of doing the Nintendo collaboration, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just made an additional light and dark Skylander for the collection. I'm not a big fan of the Nintendo collaborations, or really any collaborations inside of Skylanders, but I think that's just, I'm not a big fan of outside media in my video game. Whereas I think with Superchargers, I don't think it was executed super well. I think console locking them to only Nintendo platforms really hurt. I'm not 100% what I'm doing in the game right now, so I definitely think that there were areas to improve the character lineup, but I do think it is one of the best character lineups we've seen in a lot of Skylanders games. In addition to it, just to mention, the game was well optimized. For a lot of cases, especially, more so with Skylanders, Spyro's Adventure, Giants, and Trap Team, the game didn't feel well optimized on any console, especially Trap Team on the older gen consoles. It just was not well optimized for it. Whereas Superchargers was optimized on every single console. Now, I definitely understand there is something to be mentioned, that you lose out a lot of a audience when you move to the Wii, but the Wii was such an outdated console that you kind of needed to, after a certain point, move away from using the Wii as one of the primary consoles for the game. But not to mention, like, I don't want to discount that this game is very well optimized, as well as it looks very pretty. As we can see, all the nice vibrant colors, as well as, no screen tears, no lag, no nothing like that. Controls feel really good, and it feels really good to play with the current generation of Skylanders as well as older Skylanders as well. I felt like Superchargers definitely was the game that experienced the least amount of power creep. Especially, you could play through a lot of the regular sections just when you get to the vehicle sections. And that's going to kind of caveat me into the next point of vehicle sections aren't that bad. I think they can get a little monotonous and a little boring sometimes, but I think most of the time it's a good break in between the levels, to really kind of, enjoy it, enjoy the scenery, figure out what's going on. It's not like it's the gameplay is restrictingly difficult, but I would rather have a vehicle section over a turret section. At least in my opinion, I think the vehicle sections add a lot more dynamic gameplay to it. And as someone who played a lot of racing games growing up, a lot of Need for Speed and Forza, I had a lot of fun with the racing sections. In addition, with the racing sections, you get a ton of post-game content. I'm not necessarily going to listen to an argument where anybody says any game other than Superchargers or Swap Force has the best post-game content. So that's why I think there's a lot of underappreciation for Skylander Superchargers. And kind of segueing into the downside of it is Skylander Superchargers isn't, Giant, Swap Force, or Trap Team. We as Skylander fans were spoiled however many years ago it was, 11 years ago, where we had banger after banger after banger. And don't get me wrong, I think Superchargers is a good game. I just don't know if it's up to the same level as those games. So in a sense, it was kind of set up not to fail, but it was set up for a bit closer to mediocrity at the beginning point of it. Additionally, I do think Superchargers tested a lot of consumers' wallets. I think we saw a trend in Skylanders Trap Team where we could charge, where I don't know, Activision could just charge a lot of money for a lot of game pieces, and it's either you miss out on gameplay or you pony up the cash, and that's a bad trend in general, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of price locking games behind, whether or not you can afford the light trap or the dark trap or one of the light and dark trap masters. I feel like that's less so. You don't need to have a complete collection to really enjoy Superchargers as much. I think you just need to have one of every element for both a driver and you need to have one of those for both a driver and then one of those for a vehicle. But you can have a really complete experience with very minimal Skylanders with Superchargers. So I do think Superchargers is one of the more consumer-friendly games. But segueing into the negatives, and I definitely understand there's a lot of negatives with this vehicle sections can get really boring. I think people use that way too much as a crutch in the argument. I think the story in Superchargers is really good, but getting through the story can be a little monotonous at sometimes. I think we see really strong level design that we saw in Swap Force. However, I almost wish the levels were a little bit longer. As much as I thought Swap Force was a bit of a slog to get through, I still think that there was a lot of value in having those longer levels so you could really go through and experience everything the way you wanted to. With Superchargers, that felt a little less important, and there are some levels where it feels like you definitely got to slog through a lot of things and it's not fun. And then there are levels where, you wish you could play a lot more in it. So I do agree. Vehicle sections, they can get really bad. In addition, vehicle boss fights are terrible. They're not fun to play as. And when you pivot so hard from a game like Trap Team that had such fun, dynamic boss gameplay and such fun incentives to go fight people, and you pivot hard into, I don't think I want to replay any single boss fight from Superchargers. Point blank. Maybe the last one, but I wouldn't go out of my way to do it. Whereas with Superchargers or Trap Team, and my game crashed, so that's really cool. We're going to put a pause in the recording here. Now, popping back into it, first things first, performance was not an issue with Superchargers. That was an issue with my computer. Secondly, man, it sucks not having skippable talk cutscenes. I got a little too accustomed to that from Trap Team, so don't get that. But kind of picking up where I left off about boss fights and replayability in this game, there's a lot of levels that are fun to replay in this, but boss fights are just terrible to slog through. The controls can get really weird, especially like the Count Moneybones is probably like the most horrific boss fight in all of Skylanders. Comparing it to any of the other games, it's not great. Additionally, again, the Nintendo crossover, I wouldn't have done it that way. I don't think it was a good idea to create them in the first place, let alone just console lock them to Wii U and 3DS and Wii players. I feel like that excludes at least 60% of the, or 66% of the consoles that you can play the game on. But ultimately, in a very long-winded way of saying it, does Superchargers have its flaws? Absolutely. There's no Skylanders game that doesn't have its flaws. I also think Skylanders Superchargers gets a little bit more of tougher grading because you go from Giants to Swap Force to Trap Team, all fantastic games, into a game that's good, but not as great. And ultimately, I do think Skylanders Superchargers did jump the shark a little bit. I don't know if we are ready for the vehicle's gimmick just yet, but I still think it was a great gimmick to add, and I thought it added a lot of collectability and value, especially for someone like me who liked things that weren't just characters, but maybe what they drive, what they fly in. So ultimately, I think Superchargers is a really fun game. I do think it struggles when you compare it to its predecessors, but I honestly think you should give it a fair shake. Try it out. Go play through it. It's got a great story and fun levels to play through. But those are just my rambly opinions on it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about Superchargers. And in addition, I'm going to try and get better at making content. I know I was on a hiatus for a little bit. I definitely needed to take a little bit of a break just to kind of fall back in love with Skylanders. I was kind of viewing only playing Skylanders as a bit of a chore and just associating it with making videos. However, I've been having a lot of fun going through playing. I'm still working on my collection. I have a collection video I want to post here soon of a collection I recently picked up. But yeah, hopefully content is going to get a little bit more reliable, a little bit more scheduled. But ultimately, yeah, I'm going to try my best. The goal is doing 1 or 2 shorts every week, and then one of these more longer form videos once every 1 to 2 weeks. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the video. Hopefully there's going to be less rambly, talky head videos and more actual content. But yeah, thank you guys so much. See you later.